Happy to have you with us today. And I understand that somebody has got some questions that they're going to ask.
Yeah.
So you're going to be doing the interviewing, and
Yeah.
I will endeavour to answer those questions as best I can.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Okay, yes.
Can you please tell us something about the Canterbury Cathedral organization? How many people work here? What is a typical working day like?
There are many, many people who work here. There's about 300 employees, as well as up to about 600 different volunteers as well who work here at Canterbury Cathedral. The thing about working here is that no 2 days are the same. So I can spend one day being interviewed by you, and then another day helping out with a big service, something like that. So a very, very varied day and lots of different things that we do.
What was the role of the cathedral in the past, and what is it nowadays in the local community and in the British one at large?
Okay, well I think the thing is that Canterbury Cathedral is first and foremost, well it's the mother church of the Anglican Communion, and has been, and it's also a church. So the important thing that's not changed and has never changed is that it's a church, and therefore the services come first and foremost. So that part of the cathedral always comes first, the fact that it's a church.
How many people and pilgrims come to visit it every year? Are they reducing or increasing in number?
Oh, that's a very good question. There are nearly 1 million visitors every year, and that's visitors and pilgrims. The thing is, it's not always easy to say who's a pilgrim and who's a visitor. So it's difficult for us to tell, because sometimes a pilgrim will come along and say that they're a pilgrim, but sometimes they might not. They might come quietly and not tell us they're a pilgrim. There are more pilgrims now. Pilgrimage has become more popular recently, so we're getting more pilgrims now than we used to.
Every day. Have you ever had any problems to face and solve? Is there a particular episode that required a prompt invention, or is there an unusual experience you can tell us about?
Well, I think the thing is that it's a really big organisation, Canterbury Cathedral, and there are lots of different departments. So what's really important is that we all communicate, we all talk to each other. So if something big is happening, there are lots of different departments all doing their own little bits to help things run smoothly. We did have a visit from the Queen last year, which was a really exciting day, so all the departments had to work together. Basically, if you're going to build a building like that, without the technology and without the equipment that we have today, you need a lot of people. You need people to move things, you need people to cut things, so there would have been an awful lot of people involved in the building of this cathedral.
How long did it take to complete the building of the cathedral?
Well, I don't think you can answer that exactly, because it would have taken lifetimes. Probably some people worked their entire lifetime on the building. It would have taken decades and decades to build, because things took a lot longer, because you didn't have the machinery that we have today. And it's changed a lot over time. So when one bit was finished, they probably started changing another bit. So it was an ongoing job, really, so a long, long time.
Which were the most significant changes and the restoration the cathedral underwent?
In 1176, which was about 6 years after Thomas Becket, who was the Archbishop here, St Thomas, died, there was a big fire in the choir, and so that whole part of the cathedral was rebuilt. And shortly after that, in about 1220, the whole of what we call the Trinity Chapel was rebuilt to house the shrine of Thomas Becket. So that would have been an enormous building job at the time, I think.
What happened to the cathedral and its community after King Henry VIII's suppression of monasteries in 1540?
Okay, well after the Reformation, which is what we would call it, after the Reformation, prior to that there was a monastery here at Canterbury, so there would have been monks living here. After the Reformation, the monks would have been sent away. They weren't here anymore. There was no longer a monastery. And the monastery buildings were turned into a school, King's School, which is still here. And a small group of people, the dean and chapter, just a small group were left to look after the cathedral building.
Can you tell us something about the Trinity Chapel, about its function in the past and nowadays?
Okay, of course. Well, the Trinity Chapel I mentioned was the far end of the cathedral, the eastern end of the cathedral, and it was remodelled to house the shrine of Thomas Becket. Okay, so that's what it was remodelled to do. And there are windows all around the outside of the Trinity Chapel called the miracle windows, which tell the stories of the miracles that the pilgrims were reporting at the shrine of Thomas Becket. So that was what it was meant to be. And today it's an extraordinarily beautiful place that you'd be able to go and visit. We don't have the shrine any longer, we just have a candle burning in the place.
Which materials were used for the altar?
Now there are several altars in Canterbury Cathedral. Some of them not very exciting, but there is one particular very lovely altar in a small chapel called St Anselm's Chapel, and Anselm came from Aosta in Italy, and in fact the marble that's used to build that altar comes from that town as well, so it was a gift from the people of Aosta, so that's a very special altar.
We read on the net that the cathedral contains many strange symbols, in particular on the floor. Could you tell us something about them, the meaning?
Yeah, there's in the Trinity Chapel, just in front of the place where the shrine of Thomas Becket used to be, is a mosaic floor, which is a very, very old mosaic floor. We believe probably predated the shrine and was in the crypt and was then moved. And it's got strange things in, like signs of the zodiac and things like that, so a really interesting thing to see.
Could you please tell us something about the legend of the pilgrim who left a footprint on the cathedral floor?
Now, do you know, I have asked everybody at the cathedral and nobody knows about this, so I'll have to ask you to come back and tell me about the legend of the pilgrim that left a footprint on the blocks. We can't find anything about that. If you go into the cloisters, there are some carved footprints on some of the benches that we think were probably left by children when that part of the cathedral was sometimes used as a school.
Could you please tell us something about St. Thomas Becket's shrine?
I can. It was a beautiful shrine covered in gold and jewels, and it was put upstairs in the year 1220, where it remained for about 300 years, but it was destroyed in the Reformation, broken up. In fact, the king at that time, Henry VIII, took away much of the gold and jewels that were on the shrine, and I believe that he took about 20 cartloads of jewels back up to London in gold. And we don't have the shrine anymore, all we've got is a candle burning in its place. But there are some fragments of marble we have in our library and archives which are believed to be part of that original shrine.
Are there any special things you can tell us about the cathedral?
Any special things? Well, there's lots of I think, for me, the most special thing about the cathedral is probably that it's an extraordinary building, an incredibly old building, and it's a building that's still used today for the purpose that it was built. You can go and see umpteen castles and stately homes and things, but very few of them are actually still used for the purpose that they were originally built. But the cathedral was built as a place of worship, and that's exactly what it is today.
Do you like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales? Who is your favourite character?
I do like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and there are lots of very different characters. If you know a little bit about the Canterbury Tales, and in England we often have to study the Canterbury Tales in quite a lot of detail, and I had to many years ago. And probably my favourite character, mostly because she's quite interesting and fun, is the wife of Bath. There you go. Good story.
How many students come and visit the cathedral from abroad every year?
Well, we look after our department, and I'm from the schools department, about 100,000 students a year, and about 85,000 of those come from overseas, so lots and lots.
Do you have young people and students who help as volunteers in your organization?
We don't have as many young people as volunteers as we would like, and that's something we'd really like to change. Most of our volunteers tend to be a little bit older, but we are looking to broaden up the amount of people and the different ages of the people that come and volunteer, so that's one of the things that we're really working hard to do. That's all.
Here we are in front of one of the most important and beautiful churches in the world, Canterbury Cathedral. Originally founded in 602 by St. Augustine, Canterbury Cathedral is one of the oldest Christian churches in England. St. Augustine, a Roman missionary, was sent to England by Pope Gregory to convert the Anglo-Saxons. In 597 he baptized King Edward of Kent. The first cathedral was set on fire twice, in 1011 by the Danes and again in 1067, 1 year after the Norman conquest. Later it was reconstructed and expanded by William the Conqueror. Between 1098 and 1130, the crypt and an extensive choir were built. Critical to the history of Canterbury Cathedral was the murder of St. Thomas Becket on the 29th December 1170. As a result of this, it became one of the most important pilgrimage destinations in Europe. Thomas Becket, clerk of the court and bosom friend of King Henry II, was exiled for 6 years because he didn't accept the king's supremacy over the church. All the same, when he came back in 1170, the problems began again, and it's said that the king exclaimed, "Who could do away with this unruly prelate?" Four knights took the king's words literally, rode to Canterbury and stabbed to death Thomas Becket, who became a martyr and then a saint.
The murder of Thomas Becket created an halo of mystery that inspired authors like Thomas Stearns Eliot in his book Murder in the Cathedral, and of course Geoffrey Chaucer that wrote the Canterbury Tales. The Canterbury, and more specifically the Cathedral, is the beginning of the Via Francigena, a route that was followed by pilgrims in order to get to Rome, seat of the Pope and heart of Christianity. The first reference we have to it was made by Archbishop Sigerius of Canterbury, that went to Rome to take the palio directly from the hands of the Pope. Thanks to a sort of diary he wrote, we know that the travel took him 79 days in order to make 1,600 kilometers, with an average of 20 kilometers per day.
1174, the fire destroyed this cathedral, and the pilgrims continue anyway to come for seeing the St. Thomas shrine. They pay also a little part of the reconstruction made by William of Sens, that made this beautiful church, this beautiful cathedral in a Gothic English styles. But tragically he fell from the ladder that he was using, and he shortly after died. His successor, William the Englishman, made the Trinity Chapel and also the Corona, that they are contain the shrine of St. Thomas. And the work was completed in the 1184.
Good morning, my name is Francesca and I'm here to present the front of the Cathedral of Canterbury. The front of the cathedral is flanked by two towers, and from which start some buttresses that surround the entire perimeter of the building and divide the windows in groups of four that illuminate the naves scanned on three logs overlapping and crowned by an arched lance. A third tower, higher than the others, rises above the cross vault and obtained with the intersection of the first lance.
The crypt that dates to Norman period is the most ancient layer of the cathedral and the only remain of St. Vincent's Cathedral. Originally walls and ceilings were decorated, and in 1174, after the destruction of the choir, the Oriental crypt was expanded for the successive Trinity Chapel that would hold the new tomb and offer more space for the pilgrims.
Until 1220, Becket's shrines were exposed on this side of the crypt, but later they were moved to the Trinity Chapel until 1538. The plan of the crypt, which is accessed through the transept, is similar to that of the Trinity Chapel. The crypt presents 5 naves and pillars and columns with capitals enriched by animal figures and human figures. The cathedral features architectural elements in many different styles. In 1067, the first cathedral was destroyed by a fire and later was enlarged by William the Conqueror. After, above the crypt, it was built a choir, but later was destroyed by a fire in 1174, and then rebuilt by the French architect William of Sens, who built it in the Gothic style.
The reconstruction of the choir and the chapel took off from the west side of the cathedral and became a masterpiece of the Gothic art. The choir is a totally revolutionary work that testifies the moment of transition between the massive Norman style and the first English Gothic. In the eastern transept and around it, there is a normal triforium which overlaps the Gothic story. Concerning the valves, they are rigged and the almost pointed arcs are supported by heavy cylindrical pillars with capitals in a plan decoration. The choir is followed by the Trinity Chapel and the Crown Chapel made by the assistant of William of Sens, William the English.
And here we are in the Romanesque section of the cathedral. Here we can see one of the main characteristics of a Romanesque art, the cross vaults. These vaults, compared with the barrel vaults, have the advantage of unloading the weight on the four supports at the corners. This kind of structure makes the wall slender and higher. In 1093, the Archbishop Anselmo realized the choir and the crypt, with ambulatory located over the crypt.
The surface of the walls, thick and sturdy, is plastic, both externally and internally, with protruding elements that contrast the thrust of the arches. These elements also create games of light and dark.
The Great Cloister is a small square courtyard with a covered walkway around the house. It was built around the 15th century by Stephen Lout, and it is in perpendicular style. But there are also some remains of Norman parts. It was rebuilt at the same time as the western body of the cathedral, and it presents remarkable vaults with branched ribs. In the ceiling there are barrel vaults with some decoration with it. The Great Cloister shows on our vaults more than 800 heraldic shields, symbol of the family who for centuries have contributed to the restoration of the cathedral. One of the most important symbols is the sound of the tribune.
The plan of the cathedral takes the shape of a double-leading cross, with the four chapels radiating from the apses. The main one is the Trinity Chapel by William the Englishman. The chapel is surrounded by an ambulatory, which terminates with the Becket's Grove, the chapel that contains the shrine of the Saint's Head. The windows around the Trinity Chapel tell the stories of miracles in a beautiful colored 13th century stained glass. One of these windows depicts Thomas Becket's murder, which nowadays is marked by a huge white candle, which is always kept burning. On the floor we can see a double concentric circle, whose meaning has been interpreted in different ways. It might indicate the point where positive energies meet, or the spot where a ray of sun falls in a particular moment of the year.